The Dutchman's wood shack. I haven't been on for a while. I know I have not been around, but today I wanted to show you what I'm doing. Okay, so this is a piece of ash, and I've kind of hollowed it out a little bit. Um, so what I'm doing now is I'm getting ready to measure and see how far I want to go. So and this is what I do. I'm going to explain what I do, whether it's appropriate, the proper way to do something or not. Okay, so the number one issue people have is why aren't you using a bowl gouge? Well, I use my other bowl gouge, which is a lot easier to use. But okay, so why am I using the spindle? I have the chuck on here, but it's a little bit easier. It's more of a safety thing for me, anyways. I'll pull this out eventually when I go to finish this, final finish it. So okay, so when I'm gouging, I'm thinking in my mind how far I want to go down, where I want to go down, how thick do I want to make this lip. Now, a lot of people like to make thick lips. Mine's usually about half of what everybody else's is, but I keep getting told by my wife that I should make them thinner. Well, that's easy. Easier said than done for me anyway. I'm too paranoid about going through. I've done it a couple of times by the way, and I've gone through and I had to redo the whole thing all over again, and I want to do that. It's easy to do. Okay. There's a couple of reasons why. Okay, so number one, I'm going to tell you this is where the knowledge of the wood comes from. Now, my background, I'm a forester, so I study trees. Well, I'm also a firefighter. Okay, ash is a little bit harder. This wood here is I want to say it's a yellow ash. I don't know. Anyway, it's a little bit harder, which is nice, and you won't take a lot off at one time when you're getting to the final process. Okay, so it's kind of like I feels to me kind of like a red oak or white oak. Okay, so what you have here though is what I usually do. I take and get it down to a rough surface. Now, my marking on here was right about where I have it for rough finish. When I marked it on here, when I originally started, before I started turning it. Okay, so this is for a rough finish. Now, I'm allowing myself probably a 16th to 2 inch, 2/16 of an inch to final sand my stuff. So in other words, I'll probably be starting out with 80 grit in here a little bit just to get the bumps out. At the same time, I'm going to be using just to get all the stuff out of it that I have, the rough part. I'll probably be using one of my CI5s, the corner ones, to get this flattened out more. So it gives me enough room to play with. You always want to live yourself. That's the one thing people forget. Now, the softer woods, by sanding it, you'll go through probably a good 2/16 really quick. That's where you have to kind of judge on your own how you want to finish this off. You don't want to have it really, unless you want a really thin piece. Now, the other thing is too the bottom here. So I measured this. Okay, from front to back, that's about 3 inches. All right, so, but okay, so there's a 1/4 inch mortising hole here. I mortised a 1/4 inch so I can put my chuck in here. So you figure you deduct so it should be a 2 3/4, right? So, okay, so I measured here, and roughly that's 2. If you don't trust your, and I've got this in a way, I think I don't need that now. So, what I usually do is I use this as a gauge when it works. So all my tools need work right now. It's not pretty. Anyway, right about there. Okay, so I'll measure this, and it's about 2. It's 2 inches. So I'm right there. So it gives me, if I want to be safe, for the bottom, I could do 2 3/8 roughly would it be safe? It gives you probably about a quarter inch, eighth of an inch between the bottom here and there. So now this is me doing it. I kind of judge what I'm doing. Then I have a set of calipers I use. And I'll use these to measure inside and out. Now, and they do work. Maybe. I don't know. The batteries, I go through batteries. Okay. So, I want to zero this out. Okay, we're good. So right here is what I got, and it's 11.2. And then you go down inside there and it widens out, so it's 20.2. Then you go here, and right before it goes into the bottom, it's 26.2. So my goal all the way around is to try and get it to 11. So that's what you got, and 11 is, so that's what you want to work at, right? About like that. So that's what I usually set it at, right there. A little bit more. So I'm at 12, 11, between 11 and 12. That's about a half inch maybe. Yeah, about a half inch. So I could actually go further. So if you want to be brave, you could probably go out to an eighth of an inch. No, quarter inch. So that's about a quarter inch right there. I kind of like to go between a quarter and a half. Depends on wood. Again, the softer woods you tend to rake out quicker than you do the harder woods. Now, one of the things I tell people when I'm doing this, now this is just me. I like to use different tools. There's no rhyme or reason. I just use them. Different ways for me to use. I feel safe. Safe using them. A lot of people go, "Well, how come you're using that, Jeff?" Well, it's because I like using it. It's a simple way to doing it. You do your way, I'll do mine. One thing I can't stand is people telling me. Now you can go to class and learn it. If you're in a woodworking school, there's a way to do it, and you basically, when you're there, you do it that way. But what I'm doing here is I'm showing you my way of doing things. I get comments about this. You're using the tool the wrong way. You're doing this. This tool right here, for instance, a good example. I use this a lot, but I also use it for smoothing. I don't use it for that much more. I use it for gouging a little bit. I'm just, when I'm doing Christmas trees, I might use this. But, excuse me, I'm using the other thing. Okay, so now what I'm doing here is I'm going to be using this one again for a little bit more. What I'm going to do is kind of rake out the bottom a little bit more, make it more deeper, and then I'm going to work on this side, this corner, this quadrant, make it sound like a Star Trek thing. So, stand by. Okay, so that's about as far as I'm probably going to go with it. So we'll see. Hang on a second here. First off, I want to measure my quadrant. I want to get it to about like that, which is, well, who knows? Okay, so that's 11 right there. 15. Okay, that's good. Okay, so the bottom here is about 19, right? Okay, so usually what I do is, because I've carved this down, I want to go and just kind of smooth this out a little bit more. But now, here's the tricky part. You're getting down to the bottom. Hopefully, it's easy to go because now you got a mortise on the backside. So I got 2 1/4. So that's 2 1/4. It's about where I want to go, maybe. Okay, so that's pretty good now. I've got these sides pretty cool, but I can do a little bit more work on that. Now, the difference is between the one I was using earlier, the gouging tool, and this is the corners. Okay, so you don't want to go from, in other words, this part for like 3 inches is a working space. You get here, you're kind of pushing it, it can be easy to do. So you want to lay it flat. So the idea is not to put too much pressure on it and just kind of feel it out. Because if you start doing it, you'll get waves in there. So now what I'll do is I'll sand it a little bit. Okay, so now the final part is when I get this out of here. So there's a hump right there. So the hump I'll be taking out. When I get this, I'll take my gouging tool and I'll gouge that out. So first off, and now this is my unorthodox way of using my vacuum. I have to figure out, I have a device I'm going to put on the end of this eventually, but, so, what I've done, I guess it's my Mickey Mouse way of doing stuff. Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse! It works. So, what can I say? It works. Okay, so this thing's turning this way. All right, so it's turning this way, right? So what happens is when you're sanding, you get the sand, the dust coming this way. So a lot of guys like to put it in the back, and it works. I mean, it works. The problem is I've got to get I have to make a setup where it's a box, and this hooks up to it. Technically speaking, okay, if you want sucking power, vacuum, well, CFMs, you want a bigger hose, 4-inch. I got 4-inch, right? The problem is a 4-inch. It's so big that it's massive and it's hard to keep fastened here. And I have 2 hoses. Eventually, I'm going to probably use them both. But again, there's nothing with a 4-inch fitting on it unless you use PVC. I've tried that. If you want to use ducting from for flooring or walls or something, heating and air conditioning, you have to make your own. Basically, they don't have the fittings that fit on this, so I'm kind of winging it. It works to a point. I'm trying to keep the dust down in here, which is a pain. Okay, so two things you want to wear. Besides, you wear your mask and you wear this when you're dusting. When you're dusting. Okay, so you always want to take care of your lungs. Mine are already messed up, so there you go, for a number of reasons. No, I didn't smoke. Do people know? I don't smoke. I was a smoke eater for a number of years, so I have to go to an ear, nose, and throat specialist now. Let me tell you, there, it, yeah, I have Ventolin, but I don't use it that much actually. But it does make a difference. When I play, half a day with this, I try to limit how much time I have on here too, between my hip surgery and other things. And it's nice outside. The wife's watching the Bears game, and I couldn't. They're just disgusting. I'm not a Bears fan. It used to be years ago. I just can't stand it. I'll vote for, I don't know, the worst team in it. I think the Bears are probably the worst team in the nation, in the country. They just seem, for some reason, they just can't get it. I don't know what it is. I can argue with people till I'm blue in the face. They don't believe me, so I'm not going to argue with them. It's kind of like pulling teeth with a pair of pliers, if you ask me. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sand it, show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to turn it on. It's going to be a little noisy. Now, as I'm doing this, I'll show you what happens. Hopefully it's sucking through here. Now with the gouging tool, you can see there's a problem right here. And that tells me, okay, one reason is because of the way I have it. You need to get in this way to get a smoother cut. And you can feel the ring right here, right? Most of the time, it's going to be on the side that's kind of like what they call the cut end of it, um, because it burrs up. This side like here is not going to do it. This side will cross grains. Anytime you have a cross grain, you're going around a cross grain. It's like the same thing when you're building furniture or cutting wood, cross grains. You know how hard it is to chip, right? Okay, so when I build furniture, the biggest mistake people have is they use a rip saw or uh, a multi-purpose saw blade to cut fine wood, and what happens is it'll chip the wood. So there's a couple of things I do. I don't use that. Okay, if I'm going to cut something like veneer, for instance, I'm going to use a fine tooth, which means a lot more teeth. A lot more teeth. I think you're going to get, it'll look like shark teeth. No, I would. It's really fine. It's like a fine. Same thing should go with hand saws. depending on what your project is, you want to be able to say, okay, your handsaw. I'll give you a good example. I got one right here. Okay, because I displayed this. Here's a fine tooth sandfall handsaw. It's a rip saw. Okay, you see the way the blades are? You go one way with it, all right? So in other words, when you're cutting, you're going this way. If you back some of them the other way, you'll backsaw it. But that's what this is. And that's what you want your saw blade. Same thing goes with this. If you are gouging this out and you're doing a little bit at a time, you want your blades and your to be able to your tools to be smooth. So, Cindy Druza, okay, if you ever look her up, then your Turner, everybody that's a Turner knows Cindy. She's right on with everything she does. She's a person, I listen to her. I've yet to meet her in person. I'd love to, but she's always doing shows that I'm not involved in. So, anyway, and a lot of my buddies, they teach me too. A lot of my guys from Windy City Turners, the Windy City Turners is a great group of guys. They always help me. If you ever want to get into a group, a club, that's the one. If you're local in Illinois, that's the one to get into. So what do? So you want to go back through again. That's the reason why I rough sand first. But again, right here was a cross grain. Here's not so much. All right, here's a cross grain. They're going to show up more when you go across the grain or over the top of the grain. Plus, you're going this way. And the other thing you could do is basically burn it. I mean, by doing this, you can burn the wood if you use too much sandpaper. So it's almost like you want to have absolutely sharp blades. Now, I myself personally, some of my tools are a little bit dull. I need new blades, new gouging implements, but we'll see here. I'm going to use this now and see what happens. So, oh, that's smoother. That's much smoother. That's much smoother. See, that's the key. Now, I didn't put a lot of pressure on that when I was doing that. So that's basically the reason why I did what I did. Now, a lot of guys will already have this centerpiece off. And I'm going to take this off here in a minute. Now, man, this thing is getting dull too. So it's time for new carbide tips. Oh, that's okay, but I got a blanket. I could. There you go. Now, the idea is to work it back and forth to get that down to where I want it. Now, back in the old days, when I first started, I used to take, believe it or not, a grinder to that to get that down on my drill press. There's it, there's ways of doing lathe work without having a lot of stuff. It's just it's a little bit more difficult, and you got to be more careful. And okay, so now I'm going to take this bump down. Now you see there's a rise right there, right? Now the key is to try and get that out of there. And this is where sometimes you can use some piece of block, a piece of wood, put it in between there, and it's something that's straight. You can see a hump. I can see it right here. I can feel it. Now getting that hump down there is crucial. There's a couple of different ways I do it. And I'll use this to a point, but then get it to a point. Anyway, the other thing is I'll constantly work at getting this flat. You can use a sanding device. Now, here's the problem I have. Now, I don't have, it's like I need two chucks. I got a chuck, like a drill press chuck. You better get it out, like this. The idea is to stick this on the end of your, over here on the other tool, and put this on that and have that so that you can put a sanding device on it. The problem I have is with this one, it's old style and it's hard to take apart. So the point I want to do is get another one of those. You should have two chucks and then two of these. And one, and the reason I say is you can leave one on. In a perfect world, you have two sets. You can just slide that thing off, put a new one on. This thing is next to impossible to work on. I can't change it. People have said, why don't you do this? And it's kind of a pain. So at this point, I'm not getting bothered. I'm going to work at this a little bit more. Now what I'll do is I'll get this all tuned up. You can still see a bump there. But I'm going to take and sand this with the 80 grit. Okay, so you sand this with 80 grit like this. Okay, so this, now I have to rephrase again. I have to make it a point. This is the way I do it, so that some of you guys, if you're learning, I would advise you to go to other people too at the same time. Get everybody, can I get a rounded base on what they do? Because when you get proficient in it, you're doing your own thing. You're not doing their thing. And if I was teaching, that's exactly what I would say. Okay, so I feel confident I got this out of here. So that bump that was there is no longer there. But, I don't know if you guys can see this. Okay, so right in here is a little bit of marking. So again, cross grain, cross grain. Whenever you're going across grain, when you go with the grain, you're okay. When you're going against the grain, like right there, that's what happens. So you could get 99% of it out or 90%. But I recommend people take and sand this way. I could do this with this. So you can still see right there a little bit. But here's what happens is you take, again, I have sanding vices. And you can use your tools to do this, but you'll still get grain. I don't care what anybody says. You'll still get that mess right there. So there's just options, different kind of options. You got to leave it open. What I end up doing is I'll take it on the drill press. I've got sanding devices. I'll use that. I'll sand it a little bit more. But most of the time, I'm either hand sanding that or I'm using my palm sanders to go with the grain, not against it. Every time, no matter what kind of wood you go through, every piece of wood that you do, whenever you do cross grain cuts, and that's what's going to happen, all right? And it's just part of the job, Okay, so I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so when you're going like this stick here, this piece of pine, when you're going with the pine, it's easier to cut, and it's also easier to sand because you're going with the grain. When you cut this way, like this is, and you go against the grain, you're making marks. A good example is when you take a belt sander and you go across it. You never should go across the grain. You should go with the grain, because what happens is that belt sander will take and put grooves in there. No matter what sanding device you use, it'll put grooves. So if you have to get a hump up here off, like say you glued two pieces of wood and there's a hump, you go with the grain back and forth. You don't go against it. All right. This is softwood, so it's actually a lot harder to sand sometimes. But there's also the joiner. If you want to make this flat and be like this on the outside, like this, you take that and run it through the joiner I have over there. You also can use the thickness planer, which is right next to it there. They both work. The thickness planer is mainly for the flat spot. And you can get the dog legs out. Joiner does the same thing. They kind of do the same thing, but joiner more for this than anything else. And I love both tools. I've been able to use that thickness planer to do the same thing the joiner is. You just have to be really careful. You set it up in a certain way. Anyway, the jigs. It's all about jigs. Now, if you're getting into wood, this is pine. This is pallets. All right, so I use these pallets for all kinds of stuff. I use it for temper. This one's got a warp on it. So this one goes like this. It'll go, if you look at it, see, plus the thickness of this, one in this end is thicker than that, plus you got this chip out of it. So I like to use this stuff a lot, and it's really cool. Hey, how's it going, Cosman? Hey, nice to see you out there. Thanks for stopping by. The idea with wood is to know the wood that you're using. You can make anything out of this piece of pallets. You can make furniture out of it. You can make a tabletop. You can make birdhouses, but it depends on how you finish it, what you do with the tools that you use, that you have with your personal issuer tools, that you can make it good or bad, or just average, I should say. Now, as far as the turner is concerned, all right, okay, this is a piece of butternut And one thing I didn't do to it, I should have. You see how it's splitting? But most guys won't go with the grain. They want to go against the grain. So if it splits it, I'm okay. I'll cut it this way and I'll turn it. I'll do a live edge. So I'm not worried about that. I did a bunch. I've got a whole bunch that I'm still working on, but I did this. Okay, so this is a piece of the same wood. All right. So what I did, this is butternut. What I did, it almost looks like Osage, doesn't it? I like the grain on this. This is the reason why I don't butter up a bunch of stuff on the outside. Now, it did split a little bit, but I think I could salvage this. Now, I haven't quite processed the ability to get raw wood and dry it out so that I can turn it. It's almost, I just take my advice. It's easier if you just buy it from somebody. It might cost you a little bit more, but it'll keep saving you the headache. I've got a 55-gallon drum over there that I use as a kiln. Now I put anchor seal on this. Most guys will turn their core to a certain shape, and set it, put anchor seal on it, and then set it. This is like 6 months worth since I got this piece of cut wood, and it still seems to not be dry enough. So the problem is now I've got anchor seal over it. So it seems to me somewhere in the process I'm missing it. It's like maybe I should take and dry it out with a dehumidifier first, but then if I do that, then it's splitting. So it's kind of like, okay, I still haven't gotten that done yet, amongst other things. Okay, it's the same thing when you're doing resin work. I've got a crock pot down here. And Jeff Hart, who's great at doing orbs. You should see him. They had him do a demo at my woodworking club. He's awesome. He's awesome. But again, he'll explain to you, if you're going to put any kind of debris in, it has to be absolutely free and void of any kind of moisture. Because what happens is it gets white, flaky, and it kind of makes it, like a white color. Yeah, which is interesting because sometimes I've done them and it actually works pretty good. The funny part about it is I made a bunch of bowls out of sawdust, and they work great. I don't have them anymore; they're gone. So I don't know. We'll see. I get to a point right now where I just don't want to mess with the resin so much. I've got all this stuff here for that. The problem with the resin, again, I'm using this aluminolite, and I'm not happy with the aluminolite. Every time I've tried something, I've done everything the recommendations said. They've sent me new stuff, and it still doesn't work right, and I'm doing everything I can, and it's a process of elimination. You got to get... I've got this crock pot, and then I've got the compressor hose, and I have to drain the compressor, then I have to blow it out to make sure there's no water in the line, and it's void, and I've got an adapter on the bottom of that supposed to be to pick up moisture or any moisture content whatsoever, and I still get the reaction I do. So it's kind of like I've kind of let go of being perfect with it because it's just never going to happen. So back to my turning. All right. I want to show you something real quick. All right, I've got to take this off after but there's mortise and tenon. Now here's another thing. Okay, so this is the mortise part that I was telling you about. I dug this out. Okay, so it's a little rough in here, but I'm going to sand this on the drill press. Now, if you wanted to, I've got a device that goes on here. I could put it on here like this and take this all off. So that's just flat. So I don't know. Sometimes I just leave it on anyways. I like the look. Now, if you did a tenon where it's sticking out, you could actually take the tenon off, cut it off. You put the device that I'm talking about, which is this, on. This goes over the top of this, and then what it does is it expands. So I get it'll come out to about here. But see, I've only got limitations. It'll go, biggest one I can make is 11 and a half, because this is from the center here down to here is 12 inches. That's a foot, or 6 inches. I mean, 6 inches from here to here. Like the biggest thing I've ever made in my life in here is 11 and probably 5/8, because you're fighting it. So what I'll do is I'll put this on, I'll put that on like that, and I could take this off if I want. If you got a mortise, tenon, same idea. Again, this is where having two chucks make a difference. You put that on another chuck, so you could just take this one, take the other one, put it on, and you're good to go, right? Well, that's the thing about this. You can never have enough tools when you're turning, and I've got limited amounts of gouging tools, so that kind of prevents me from using, doing a lot of things that other people can. I'm not okay. I'm not worried about it. I don't care about that. I got too many other things going. So anyway, the long and short of it, that's how I get my bowls done. Any questions or comments? I'd love it if I heard from you guys what you guys want to talk about subject wise. Now this channel, what I'll do on here from time to time, especially during the Christmas time, I make Christmas trees, snowman. There's another lady out there, Dizzy Turner. Dizzy Snowman. And she does a great job. Her name is Holly Dunn. And I highly recommend checking her out too. She's Cindy Druza, Holly Dunn, for Holly Dunn, Kelly Dunn, and then Wendy C.D. Turner's. They're all great people. Chris Tackett used to do a lot of stuff with his company. He's not doing it anymore, so I don't know if he will or not. Russ Clarity on his Let's Talk Shop with Russ. And then you got my friend Kilroy's. You got to go check out Kilroy's. I'm going to start listing off people on here and let you guys know ahead of time. When I'm going to come on a little bit more often. I just been between my hip and not being in town and stuff like that. Just things happening this year. 25 has been a crazy year. And I'm still not over this. So I can only stand here for so long. So that's the reason why I'm going to get off the air and go watch the Bears lose, which they do. I mean, I don't know why people think they're going to win. It's against the law. It's against the law in Chicago to have a winning team. You know that, don't you? Anyway, I'm going to get off. I want to thank you guys all for watching the Dutchmans Wood Shack. I promise I'll be on more often. And I just hope I entertain you. If I don't do anything, I hope I entertain you. I might have sipping, like Friday nights. I might have a Friday night session where it's Friday night's party night, sipping with the Dutchman. I have my favorite beverage out. Anyway, I'm going to let you guys go. Thanks again. God bless. And remember, if you're not making sawdust, you're not being creative, so get with the program. Thanks again, guys. Bye.